Welcome to the office where our door is always open. I am your host, Goretti Paul, Managing Director of HRWise. Today we are continuing our conversation which we started in our last episode on the National Insurance Corporation and basically NIC benefits to employees and the role that employers play in the process as well. I am joined again by Mrs. Joelle Alexander from the NIC, who is going to share some information with us about long-term benefits in this episode. Welcome again, Joelle.
Thank you very much, Ms. Paul.
All right. So, Joelle, as it relates to the NIC benefits, last episode we took some time to go through our short-term benefits. This time we want to go through the long-term benefits for the benefit of our viewers, and I know that the one that everybody is familiar with, of course, is pensions and retirement benefits. So can you share with us a little bit about that? Who is eligible, what are the benefits, and so on?
Thank you very much, Ms. Paul. Retirement benefits. Our insured persons are entitled to either a monthly pension or a one-time payment, which is a grant. Currently, the pensionable age is 65 years old.
Right.
However, someone could apply for the pension from the age of 60. Once you have contributed to the NIC, 180 months of contributions or 15 years, you're entitled to a monthly pension.
Right.
However, if you have any contributions less than the 180, it'll be a one-time payment or a grant. If you apply for your pension before the age of 65, it would be a modified or a reduced pension.
Right.
By reduced pension, I mean that there would be a 0.5% reduction for every month that you are less the age 65.
Right.
However, for those persons who have contributed for 180 plus months, there's a 0.1% awarded for every month past the 180.
Okay.
So for retirement pensions, there are two things to bear in mind. The age and the number of months that you've paid into NIC. At the NIC, we use the best 5 years to calculate your pension.
Okay.
So we get the average of the best 5 years, and that would be the base
Right.
to process your
And
benefits.
it does not have to be consecutive years.
No, it doesn't have to be consecutive years.
Okay.
No.
All right, good. All right, so in terms of, well, apart from the retirement benefits, we have the invalidity benefit. So can you elaborate on this one?
Sure. Some persons may have to retire from work on medical grounds. And in that case, we have invalidity benefits. In our last episode, when we spoke about the maximum payout on a sick leave, I did mention that someone could apply for their invalidity pension once they've maxed their sick leave. Because if at the end of the sick leave that you are still unable to work, your medical practitioner would deem you an invalid, unable to work, and then at this time you could apply for your invalidity pension. With invalidity pension, you should be under the pensionable age, and it should not have been as a result of an employment injury. You should have paid at least 60 months of contributions of payments of 36 consecutive months before the month of invalidity. Also, you should not be in receipt of sickness benefits, and you should have made not less than 180 months for a monthly pension.
Okay.
Like with retirement, when I spoke about it earlier on, once you have 180 months, you get a monthly pension.
Right.
Anything less would be a grant. Similarly, with invalidity benefits, once you have 180 months of contributions, it would be a monthly invalidity pension.
Okay, so once you get an invalidity pension, you are no longer eligible for the retirement benefit?
No. You're retiring on medical grounds.
Okay, yeah, so that's the clarity I wanted.
Yes, you're retiring on medical. Retiring is not only when you've reached pensionable age.
Right.
Retiring here means that you've no longer in active gainful employment.
Right.
So you're leaving work, retiring on medical grounds. You apply for your invalidity benefit.
Right.
It's also with the invalidity benefit, you need to submit a review form every 6 months. So every 6 months, your doctor needs to deem you still unable to work. Some persons may have had medical conditions that they are unable to work. They would receive the invalidity benefits. But as time goes by, the condition improves and the doctor has deemed them able to work.
Right.
For persons who have received a invalidity pension, which is a monthly pension, when this person resumes work, their contributions would continue.
Okay.
However, if this person received a grant, which is a one-time payment, when this person returns to work, they would be starting from 1 month of contributions.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. Now the disability benefits, how does a disability benefit differ from the invalidity benefit?
Okay. Disability benefit is if somebody got injured on the job, employment injury benefit, they've maxed the employment injury benefit, they would apply for the disability benefit. As compared with sick leave, once you've maxed your sick leave, you'd have applied for your invalidity.
Right.
So with disability is because of an injury on the job. Also, some persons may have had an injury on the job and they've become disabled or they're unable to work because of that injury. Then they would have applied for the disability benefit. And that's the difference.
Okay. And what is the process to claim for this benefit? Is it the responsibility of the individual, the employer, since it's the person got injured on the job? Whose responsibility is it to initiate that process with NIC?
Okay, for any injuries on the job, for any injuries on the job, the person would have brought in their sick leave. They would have gone to the doctor would have issued them with a sick leave. They would need to bring that into the employer for the employer to complete that part. I would like to encourage employers, once it's an injury on the job, do not just submit the sick leave to the NIC, because we at the NIC would not know it's an employment injury.
Right.
We would treat it as simply a sick leave. With employment injuries, there are other forms that need to be accompanied with the sick leave. There is the employment injury form, which the employer completes. There's also a witness form and the claimant form. The claimant would give an account of the injury from their perspective as a claimant, and also the witness. The witness could be somebody who actually saw it, or the person that the person got injured reported the incident to.
Okay.
So these three forms, the employment injury form, the claimant form, and the witness form, would accompany the sick leave. In the absence of these forms, we would not know it's an employment injury.
Okay.
Remember, in the last episode, I said that with employment injury, there's also the medical expense component to it, where the NIC pays a maximum of $20,000 for the lifetime of an individual.
Right.
So similarly, with disability, it would have to go through the employer, because the doctor would deem this person unfit for work. But how would the employer know that? So everything would come through the employer to the NIC.
Okay. All right, thank you. We do have to take a break now. Viewers, don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
The Office is brought to you by Renwick & Company Limited, multi-graphics powered by Expert Group and the Goddard Catering Group.
Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. We are discussing long-term benefits of the NIC. Before the break, we were talking about disability benefits, and I had a question for you, Joel. In addition to these three forms that you indicated are necessary when somebody gets injured on the job, are the incidents investigated by NIC to confirm whether or not the benefit should kick in?
Yes, all employment injury claims are investigated by our investigating officers. Everyone, because we need to be satisfied, at least I need to be satisfied that it was actually an employment injury and it was not negligence on the part of the employer or the employee.
Right.
So every employment injury claim that comes into us has to be investigated.
Okay, so based on that point, if it is found that the employee or the employer were negligent this claim may not be honored.
It would not be honored, and we would also advise the employer how they could lessen the chances of it happening again. Whether you need to put signage, maybe you need to put rails, maybe you need to change the flooring or something. We would advise how this incident could not occur again.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Now, the other piece of clarity was around how do you differentiate whether an NIC claim is applicable or not. And you were giving us an example during the break. I want you to share the example on air so our viewers can benefit from it. And we were using Cameron, our cameraman, as the example. And you were saying that if Cameron were to fall down the stairs in my office while he's doing his job, let me let you go ahead and give your scenario.
So we have Cameron here with us today as the cameraman, and he's leaving your office. He slides and he falls. He hurts his back. This could be considered as employment injury, providing that you, as the employer, your floors are not wet. There are handrails to go down, so that's in place. So this could be considered as employment injury. As compared to Cameron is leaving, he's done with the set, he's leaving, and you ask him to assist with some electrical problem downstairs. Cameron is here today as a cameraman in that capacity, not as an electrician.
Right.
He goes to dabble with your electricity and he gets shot. This cannot be seen as employment injury because he's not hired as an electrician.
Right.
He's hired as a cameraman. So with employment injury claims, it has to be investigated to ensure that the person got injured doing their work, doing what they are hired to do,
and
doing what they are paid
that's a key thing that we need to highlight. Yeah.
Yes, because some persons may want to do a little extra, but is that part of your duties?
Right.
But don't worry, in the absence of employment injury and the medical expenses, there's also sick leave. So in the event that Cameron does go downstairs and dabbles with your electricity and gets injured, and he's unable to go to work, he would still get sick leave.
Right.
And get our sickness benefits, but it will not be considered employment injury benefits.
Right. Now, we had a situation sometime, well, I became aware of a situation where somebody was traveling, let's say the person is a salesman traveling on one of those trucks, and the person was at work, but the person parked or got out of the vehicle, and in coming out of the vehicle, tripped and fell. Does that classify as employment injury?
Well, our investigating officer would need to come in and investigate as to the reason why he got out of the vehicle. Because it could be a case that he got out of the vehicle to have a drink at the bar. It could be he got out of the vehicle because he saw a prospective potential client that he was going to. So it has to be investigated as to what was the reason for him to have gotten injured on the job.
Okay, so definitely the investigation has to take place.
Yes.
And the inspector is going to determine whether or not, after having considered all of the facts, whether or not the benefit will be applicable.
Yes.
All right, good. Okay, so we also have survivors benefits as one of the long-term benefits.
Yes. This benefit provides a measure of financial support to the surviving spouse and or dependents of an insured person. In the event one of our contributors have passed away, if at the time of death this person was in receipt of a pension, whether it was a retirement or invalidity pension, or if at the time of death they would have been entitled to one if they applied, the spouse, husband or wife, would get the benefit, the survivor's benefit.
Right.
If there are any children below the age of 16, they would get it until the age of 16. At 16 years, if they're in full-time education, they would get it until the age of 18.
Okay.
In the absence of a spouse and children, if there are any dependent parents, they would be considered.
Okay.
It would be considered. In the absence, like I said, if you don't have the 180 months, anything less would be a grant. So if at that time of the contributor's passing, they had less than the 180 months, the spouse would get a grant, a one-time payment, and also with the children, if it was applicable that the children would get anything, it would be a one-time payment, a grant.
Now, what's the breakdown between the spouse and the children?
Okay. 75% of what would have been the deceased monthly pension would be given to the spouse if there were no dependent children, or 50% would have been 50% of the deceased retirement or invalidity grant would have been the spouse, and 50 would have been the dependent.
Okay.
So if there were no dependent children, it would be 75%.
Right.
If there were children, it would be 50% for the spouse
And
50 for all the children.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. We do have to take another break, so viewers don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with us. Joel, we are drawing our conversation to a close, so we have to talk about death benefit for sure as one of the long-term benefits offered by NIC. So tell us how the death benefit and the survivor's benefit differ.
Okay. Death benefit is applied where an insured person in insurable earnings dies as a result of an employment injury. Simply put, the person died on the job.
Right.
In this case, a widow or widower receives the benefit for life, commencing on the date of death until they remarry or they cohabit. Earlier on, what I should have mentioned with survivors benefit, if the person the spouse is under the age of 55, they get it for 1 year. Above 55, they get it for life until they remarry or cohabit. The difference between survivors and death is that it's for life,
Right.
regardless of their age, until they remarry or cohabit.
And how do you know when they remarry or cohabit?
Let me just say, NIC finds out.
You have your means?
NIC finds out, yes.
Okay, all right. So is there a requirement for them to report regularly, or do you just have your means of confirming that information?
With survivors, you need to submit a form every 6 months.
Okay. All right. So this takes us to the list of the list of long-term benefits offered by the NIC. But we also wanted to talk about audits, because NIC is mandated, or they have the right to conduct audits, and employers should provide the necessary support and assistance to facilitate those audits. So can you share with us a little bit more about the audit process?
Sure. When you come to register as an employer with the NIC, an inspector is assigned to you, and it's based on zones. So whichever zone that you fall in, there's an inspector assigned to that zone. An inspector is an officer of the NIC specifically appointed to act as the agent of the NIC. So an inspector is the liaison officer between the NIC and the employer. The inspector assists the employer with the interpretation and compliance of the NIC Act and regulations where required. Also, the inspector investigates all claims for employment injury, survivors, and invalidity benefits, and investigates cases where needs be to verify a benefit. Employers, NIC inspectors, they have rights. They have the right to enter your premises at all reasonable hours once they suspect that there is any employment at that place. They also have the right to examine your wage records of any employer. And they have the right to conduct audits of your employer's records to ensure compliance.
Right. So employers, when you get that call from NIC saying that they would like to conduct an audit, you ought to comply?
Yes. Yes, please.
Now, having experienced the audit process, I can tell you as an employer, I find it to be very useful. And I know that some people may say, oh, why NIC want to audit me, what are they looking for, and get all upset at the fact that they now have to facilitate this inspector. From my experience, I can tell you it's very beneficial, because what it does, it confirms whether or not you are doing things correctly. And obviously, the earlier you can confirm that, the better for you, because if you have an error that remains undetected, it can continue for a long time. So I think the periodic audits are actually very valuable. And I always welcome the inspectors whenever they are ready to come and audit.
And sometimes it's not a case that you're under deducting, but it's a case that you may also be over deducting.
Yes.
You've been deducting too much. And then that's where the inspector comes in, just to ensure compliance.
Exactly.
And it's really for the benefit of both the employer and the employees. Because as an employer, you do not want to under deduct contributions for your workers.
Right.
Because that's really a disservice to them. And likewise, if you're over deducting, it's a disservice to you as an employer as
Because
well.
you would have to refund them.
Yes.
When you finally figure out that you've been over deducting.
So, like you said, welcome NIC inspectors with open arms.
Absolutely.
When they come in, they need your personal files. Please have it updated and readily available for our inspectors. Also, financial records.
Right.
It shouldn't be a case where there's a tug of war between inspectors and employers. They're acting on behalf of the NIC. And they're just really here for the benefits of you as an employer and also your employees.
Okay, so Joel, we're almost out of time, but one thing I wanted us to clarify before we go is self-employed persons. So persons who are self-employed but have nobody else working for them. NIC always encourages these persons to make contributions for themselves. So can you just elaborate on that quickly before we wrap up?
Anybody who has a trade or business, self-employed like you said, working for themselves, we do encourage you to come into the NIC to get registered. You can benefit from all of our benefits that we offer at NIC with the exception of employment injury.
Right.
So what you need to do, come into the NIC. You may have a business name, you may not. Come into NIC, get registered, complete the form. Our investigating officer will come out to investigate that you're actually self-employed and that you're not working for someone.
Right.
Your contributions are based on your average monthly income. You're able to pay that. You pay that contributions for at least 6 months until you move either a band up or a band down based on your circumstances at the end of the 6 months. I would like to encourage persons who are self-employed to come into the NIC. I've seen too many persons who have worked for themselves for many, many years, and when they become of age, when they need support, a safety net, they have nothing to fall back on because they did not pay NIC.
Right.
I'd like to encourage them to come into the NIC and get registered to pay as a self-employed contributor.
I endorse this message.
Wonderful.
All right, we are out of time, Joel. Thank you so much again. It's been a wonderful time with just clarifying. I'm sure a lot of our viewers would be happy with what we've discussed today because I'm sure they've gotten some level of clarity. So thank you so much. Thanks to the NIC for being supportive. And to our viewers, I say thank you so much for staying with us. Continue to follow HRWise on social media. Continue to share your comments and suggestions. Any questions you would like us to answer, feel free to share with us as well. Until next time, take care.
The Office is brought to you by Renwick & Company Limited, multi-graphics powered by Expert Group and the Goddard Catering Group.